the next room.
Let's go to here, that's the here, so.
Okay, this will be a collaborative session, which does make it longer, okay? I'm gonna ask you some questions because the room will benefit from each other rather than just listening to me, okay? I'm not 100% expert on all this. I've just put a hell of a lot of research and a hell of a lot of experience into it. So if you're starting out, haven't been doing much professionally, and you want to go from, you know, more freelance type stuff to being a professional company, this is what you're going to get, okay? We're going to talk about the differences between RFPs because there are 3 different types, okay? A request for information is just that. People are just looking for information. They're not looking for a full-blown proposal. Basically, I'm going to teach you the differences on how to save some time on identifying certain things so you don't waste time on customers that want to waste your time, okay? And that aren't potential customers, even though they think they are, okay? I want to tell you who you can focus on and who you shouldn't focus on, okay? And how to be more efficient. Because I'll tell you what, I hate spending 5 hours writing a damn proposal. And I'm sure you do too. So I'm gonna try to show you how to cut that down based on my experience and the frustrations I've had and the research I had to do to be able to do that, okay? It's usually submitted when a client's looking just for help with identifying a problem. It's a consulting request, basically. They don't know what they need yet. So they don't even know what to put in an RFP for you, or to you, or any company. So that's the primary thing on that. These type of requests are usually for agencies that are hired to assist in putting together a full-blown requirements document, an RFP. Sometimes they're used as pre-qualifiers for vendor selections, and usually they help set the budget, okay? If you get these types of requests, limit it to this, because that's all they're looking for. They don't even want to know you so much. They may want to know just how much do you charge per hour for your basic services. They might want a bullet pointed list, and that's it, okay? They don't want you to know who they may be, even if they're going through a third-party service to gather these requirements, like an agency. So basically what they're trying to do is just to basically check rates and see if you're competitive, okay? In a general ballpark, if you're charging, say, 85 and the next guy's 75, that's in the ballpark. You got someone charging 150 an hour, they may be a little out of that scope when the rest of them are, that's all they're looking for, okay? An RFQ is a request for quote. RFQ is usually a shorter document, and it's an internal part of an RFI or an RFP. You can't have all 3 of these things combined, okay? Which is usually what we get. And we'll talk about that in a minute. They just want to know, like I said, more a la carte pricing. They basically want to know what services you offer, and that's it, okay? They're usually price focused and not so much about the details. They don't want you to analyze their business or their website or anything like that. They're just looking for, just give me a ballpark type thing, okay? Whenever someone says, just give me a rough idea, that's the red flag that's all they're looking for. And this type of thing is just to hopefully get your foot in the door. And this is probably 50% of what I get, okay? And this is
Joomla.
Microsoft, you better not be doing updates. Last time I was here in this room doing a presentation, it did updates.
Probably during the mothership.
Yeah.
It was probably a Sunday. Was it a Sunday also?
It could have been. Yeah, it was.
On Sunday.
Damn it, sorry. Bear with me, I gotta tie my shoe anyway.
If you have to go to the bathroom, now's the time.
Yeah, if you have to use my cup, let me drink my orange juice and then I'll let you have it. Because I don't want to drink after.
Question.
Yes?
So the RFI, do you get paid to do that, or what's the
No.
purpose for you doing it? Why would you do it? Just help somebody
It's answering a question just like I just answered yours.
Okay.
That's all it is. It's just getting on the phone and they're looking for an initial inquiry or shooting that first email to you. Hey, I've got this. Do you do this type of work? What are your services type thing? I have a preset document that's 1 page and it's my company history, basic overview. I made it look nice. And then beyond that, if someone's looking for a request for quote, I also have additional like services page of what we offer with basic descriptions. And I submit that with it because they may be looking for some things and not realize that I do offer other things. So
you
it
don't
helps me
put a lot-
upsell.
You don't put a lot of time into those first two. That usually is pretty much standard.
First two, you don't put a lot of time into at all. I mean, I'm talking less than 15 minutes. And if you've got a way to throw some pre-templated do that and have them about your company and about your services, just some basic descriptions. Because even if they're looking for security type consulting and you have that already in there, who cares? It's in there, but all this other stuff is too. So it's a good selling point for them. So this really stinks. I hate when this happens.
Right. I'm going to revise how detailed you go. Normally, a few years ago, I started to charge for my RFIs. I used to give them a roadmap.
RFIs I never charge on. Okay, never. RFIs and the RFQs, I never ever charge on. Most of my proposals, which are full-blown proposals and replies to RFPs, I don't charge for. On Friday morning, on my way driving in here, I did have a client call me that I've been talking to for about a week, and I basically told him I'm going to have 5 hours invested in analyzing your site. It's a 1.5 to 2.5 migration, and I basically told him I'm going to have 5 hours of my time invested in you, and we haven't even done business yet. I'm charging you my hourly rate. If you come back and choose me as the vendor of choice for your project, that will be credited into the proposal that I give you. He's like, wow, that's really fair. And because basically I'm analyzing his site, I'm giving him documentation on what he needs, so that now he knows what to tell other people he needs. Okay, so my competitors are gonna find out because he got to me first. So in my opinion, that's worth some time getting paid. Yeah.
How much of this is formal, and how much of this is an email asking a question you have to identify?
These first two are informal. The RFP that we haven't gotten to yet is formal. That's, your proposal is a formal reply.
No, not the replies, but how do you identify? I work with small businesses, and what I get is a phone call saying, could you, create this site? How do you figure out what response to give?
How long does it take you to answer an email?
5
Like
to
that.
10 minutes?
Just do it.
Oh,
Something
I-
like that. I mean,
I do, but
that time can add up, but some things you just have to judge. But in your replies, it's very, very important to ask them questions. They're asking you questions. You have to make sure you're asking them questions too, and quite a bit of them, okay?
Yeah.
Because how else do you qualify people? You have to qualify your leads, okay?
That's
Because
what I was wondering.
one of the slides, I'm basically once we get into the RFP part, you'll see, I do not bother with people who I do not have a minimal 50% chance of getting that job. If I feel they're 20%, not worth my time, because it's an investment of time.
What about
It's really annoying.
if their budgets are kind of absurd? How do you, are you gonna talk about that?
If they're absurd,
Well, like,
you don't do business with them.
no, but I mean, how do you convince them? Do you teach them about what the
You
work
have to
actually
educate your
is?
consumer.
Yeah.
If you feel you educate them, that's all part of the sales process, okay? Can everybody hear me without the microphone? That's really annoying.
What about the taping? Can you do it?
I'll speak loud and clear.
Just for the recording, you
Yes.
really need it, because everybody's gonna wanna see yours.
I got a shotgun and going on this, so it should be good. I'm gonna try something with this.
Okay, I think we left off about here. Sometimes they're used as a pre-qualifier.
Now,
Yeah.
see if this cuts in.
Sure, so. And I like to move around.
Yeah.
Better? Hello? Better?
Yeah.
It's not gonna work.
Still running.
I'll just talk loud.
How about clarify connection?
Maybe you have turned off the other.
Okay.
Hey, turn on the volume in the board. Maybe that will.
Yes, yeah, maybe you can check the volume for me and try it yourself. Interrupt us. They're a pre-qualifier for the bidding process. They usually help set the budget, like I said. Pretty basic stuff, okay? They're just checking out, say, 10 people, and they want to narrow it down and say, we want to send a full-blown RFP to these people, okay? And they may pick 3 or 4. This is the one that we most often get, or should most often get, okay? These are the ones we like, a full-blown, request for this one, RFP, sorry. It's the big dog you're most familiar with, I'm sure. These contain the other 2 all rolled into one document, okay? These are the kinds, they've already done all that stuff, and maybe they found you afterwards in their internet search or whatever it may be. Hopefully it was an internet search and you're good at your SEO. It's where you'll offer solutions to the clients with your proposal. They're usually very detailed, contain many pages and sections, and they're a full-blown tool for competitor analysis. They take the most time, and that's where we're going to try and trim that down, okay? They got set deadlines, requirements for questions, responses, structures, and submissions. I wish that were true all the time. A lot of them don't have full-blown requirements, or none sometimes, and you need to respond when someone sends you an RFP and they do not have deadlines set, okay? They do not have requirements set. You need to respond to those people, and you need to ask them, what is your deadline for a reply? That's the most important up top question that you need to ask. How long do I have to reply to this RFP? If they reply and say as soon as possible, email them back and say, I want a date that you can put on a calendar. They may not understand why. Who cares? If they come back with a weird answer, that's part of your qualification to see if this is the client that you want to even deal with, okay? Because if they're a professional company, you want your A-plus clients, as a friend of mine calls them, you need to make sure that they're gonna give you A+ information, okay? And if they can't be clear and communicative with you, just from the very get-go, then you know during the project, you're gonna have problems, okay? So that's a qualification, number one. And that's what we're gonna talk about now. You do not have to respond to every single one with a proposal, okay? If you don't like it and it's not a good fit for you, don't do it. Don't even bother. Don't waste your time. Just say, thank you. This is out of our scope. This is not a good fit for us. Just be upfront and honest. Let them know so that you don't waste their time either, okay? How was it distributed, okay? Is it a government that just posts a PDF on their website for the world to download? Did they contact you directly? Did you assist them in putting together a requirements document? Things like that. To qualify your RFPs, really look at how you got it and how available it is to your competitors. If they came directly to you, I would raise that up to the above 50% mark, okay? You can flat out ask them, how many vendors do you have selected that you sent this to? There's nothing wrong in asking those questions, okay? Which goes along with this. Was it provoked by you? Did you ask them, were you in a deli and say, hey, I noticed you didn't have a website? Give me a call type thing? That's a provoked inquiry. Blind submission could be anything, or was it a referral? Referrals are awesome. If it's a referral, that, to me, that would probably put it in the above 50% mark of having a chance. Blind submissions, probably 80% of the time, they're below. Okay? You could waste a lot of time on just full-blown blind submissions that people didn't, that you find out those people did no research at all on your company. Did they go to the Joomla resource directory? How many of you are in the Joomla resource directory? Okay, the rest of you aren't. You should be. If you're doing professional Joomla development work, you need to be in the Joomla resource directory. Okay. If they're qualifying people in the Joomla resource directory based on what they see there, if they're asking, I had this client I talked to Friday. I asked him, how did you choose to talk to me? He says, I scanned the resource directory and then I emailed them. First client I ever had do that, ever. And I said, you actually emailed the resource directory and asked them who they thought would be a good, candidate? He says, yeah. He gave me 5 names. I mean, the five people that were on that resource directory, he says he thought that they would be a good fit for you. And I was one of them. He says, yeah. And I said, who was it so I could thank them? And
It's a good approach, right? Pretty good approach.
it was awesome, and I'm like, I wish everybody that came to me, because he knows that I have credibility now, with the Joomla project being on the resources directory, and now they referred me. So I thought that had a lot of impact, okay, in me trying to sell this contract that I'm still in negotiation with. So, I mean, to me, it put that guy at probably 90% above that I'm going to get this job. Yeah.
Outside of this room, when you're talking to clients and corporations, do you mention Joomla as Joomla, or you mention you're going to build this in a CMS, an open source CMS? Because I mention Joomla sometimes to clients, and it means nothing.
The approach really matters. It depends on the person. If they're non-technical, which most are,
Yeah.
Your typical business owner, like I said, you walk into the deli and they call you and say, hey, what can you do for me? Well, what are your needs? Do you want to update your own content? we can use one of the top CMSs in the world, you know, and just explain that it's something you can manage your own content. That's pretty much all they care about.
Right.
You know, and if 90% of the time I just say, I'm using a content management system called Joomla, you know, and we're experts in it, it's all we do type stuff, and I've been dealing with it for this many years, and I'm very involved in the project, blah, 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 and you upsell yourself that way, and I guess give yourself credibility in that. So I don't go into deep details on what Joomla is, who's involved, and all that stuff. It's just, I tell them it's the right tool that will fit their needs, and it's open source, so that means it's free and it keeps their budget down. Usually if I use those types of terms, they love you. You know, anytime you use the word free in a selling tactic, they love you. Free is for me. Are you allowed to talk to someone on the phone? This is a big qualifier for me. If I cannot pick up the phone and physically talk to a person, a point of contact, it goes in my 50% or below bucket. Okay? If it's say a government agency, a town, okay? A city wants their new website built, and they strictly say email contact only. I email them and say, is there a person that I can get on the phone with and get some emails or some answers clarified, so we do not have an endless email conversation? A lot of times they will respond with a contact. If they reply and say, no, we are doing email contact only, throw it in the garbage. Your chances of even having a possibility of dealing with that company, entity, organization on a professional level just dropped more than you would ever realize, okay? Because you cannot deal with problems through an email, okay? If your client is not doing anything, it's very easy for them to ignore an email. If you cannot add that human touch as part of your sales process, then you've already lost. A lot of people I deal with, I do email interaction with, because it may not require picking up the phone. But I need to know if I have a lot of questions to be answered, and I don't want that endless email back and forth for a week, and I know that I can answer all the emails in 15 minutes on the phone, and they know you're a person, you get to know your client that way, chances of you having a better relationship with your client is going to go through the roof. How are questions handled? That's what we were just talking about. Match your skills to the RFP requirements. This is a biggie. If the project's just too large, don't take on more than you can handle, okay? Have other businesses that can handle the things that you don't know how to do, that are over your head. We all have things over our head, okay? I've got partners for extreme things, you know, server side stuff that I go to and say, I'm not an expert in servers. You know, I'm a programmer, I'm a designer. I don't deal with server stuff, but I've got this massive client that's got all this, you know, single sign-on, you know, type stuff, and we got to deal with all this special server stuff for them. They need multiple databases for a single site, things like that. I go to somebody else and I subcontract them. Have those types of people available to you. If you're just a designer, not a programmer, and you have a large contract that requires some programming, have a partner that you can go to help put that RFP together for you, okay? You shouldn't have to turn much down. But if you do, unless you have someone reliable, emphasize reliable to back you up, okay? Or have an expert or an expert company that does have those qualifications that you can hand it off to and reply to that person or refer them to. Because if you reply and say, this is out of our scope, to be honest with you, it's too big of a job for us. But we know that these people can handle it. We've dealt with them before. We know them well. they can handle this and they would be a great fit for you. That client will praise you for that because you didn't just leave them out there hanging, okay? And now they're searching for somebody else. And you've given someone you know a chance to get another job. And that makes everybody happy and they'll thank you for that. We talked about 50% chance or better of getting the job and having the exit partner to hand off the ones you don't have time for as well. I mean, we all get busy, or in this economy, if you are too busy and you can't handle a lot, you're in great shape. It's not always the case. All right, that's the end of the boring stuff, at least I think so. Proposals, this gets kind of a little cooler to deal with. What's your average for, say, roughly a $5,000 site? What's your average time that you would spend on that total, I'm talking phone time, email time, from point of contact to the point that you send the proposal? What's your average time that you would spend on a roughly $5,000 site?
I usually, for $5,000, I spend no more than 3 hours on it.
Okay.
I try to keep it to 2% of the total cost of the project.
I have already priced out what.
You have templates?
Usually, yeah, that
Okay.
I can figure out, because most Joomla sites have
Similar?
similar things to them.
At that
answering-
level, they would be similar.
And the work is in, before that, figuring out what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And so 3-4 hours.
3 or 4 hours? Anybody else?
I would say sometimes a day or two. That's
Sometimes a
probably-
day or two?
Because I'm including going out and meeting with the people, talking with them, sometimes having a couple meetings. And that's, 2-3 hours at a time. Sometimes when you're driving, you spend time and you have phone conversations. Then it takes you about
For
time
that size site,
to write it up. Yeah.
if you can't do it in one meeting,
Mhm.
you're spending way too much time on that.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion. Depending on where they're at, and stuff like that, I wouldn't really count actual meeting time,
Yeah.
actually dealing with them, should be, in my opinion, should be no more than 3 hours max, tops. And that's doing analyzing, things like that for that size site, okay? Once you start getting around maybe 7,500 and above, you can spend some more hours, okay?
I mean, it
And
takes me at least-
I'm talking sites that are, say, 50 hours worth of work, okay? You should be spending no more than 10% of the hours that you would spend doing that complete job
Right.
on your proposal time, okay? So keep that, say this looks like a 50-hour site, I can spend 5 hours max, tops, and that's everything. You want to keep it as small as possible. Time is money.
I agree.
That's a margin.
But the thing is that when I'm trying to write a proposal, typically the site is, you got to explain kind of what it is that you're going to help them achieve with the site, somewhat of a strategy, because you're talking about open source and you're talking about what the capabilities are. It just takes time.
Strategies for their business, you are no longer point, which is billable time.
Okay.
Okay, that would fall into a completely different scope
Okay.
because you're doing business strategy work.
So just kind of divide all that
This,
stuff out.
yeah, that type of stuff you need to separate and you need to explain it that way. Okay, I'm talking the proposal process on analyzing their site, not their business.
Okay.
You're analyzing their website and how many hours is it going to take you to develop site from this stage, whether it's a rebuild to this stage or a brand new one, based on the needs that they've told you. Okay, they're going to tell you their needs. You're not going to analyze what their needs are as much. They should already know what their needs are because it's their business. Okay, and if they need some business analysis, then that would be a different scope.
Yeah, but
Does that
you
make sense
mentioned
to
like-
everybody?
When you mentioned like upsell, to me, that's the whole point of why I would have that conversation, why I would even write that into the proposal. I mean, I've got one person who's asking me for something, they start off at 300, but it could go to 2,500 very quickly
Right.
if I just explain the right type
But
of what
but
you're trying to accomplish.
you need and anybody that's doing what he's doing, okay? You need to understand. You need to be able to dissect what is part of the proposal process and what is business consulting, okay? Because they're completely different. And you need to be able to educate your client. That would fall under a business consulting fee, okay? And you can do that, and that would fall under, you are now an agency who is going to help them put a requirements document together to be able to get an RFP. And that should be, in my opinion, I would do billable time,
Yeah,
okay? Anybody disagree with me? Okay.
that's an evaluation, yeah.
It's an evaluation, okay? So don't waste time. You're spending way too much time.
Yeah.
You know, you're going way beyond what you should and need to, okay? And you could be making a hell of a lot more money in your pocket and be more valuable to that company if you were to charge for your services, okay? Proposal guidelines. Always include a cover letter when you reply with with your proposal. Know that people are looking for your services. They don't care as much about your abilities, okay? Believe it or not. They want to know that you listened to what their needs are, okay? Of course they care about your abilities, but they care more about that you understand their needs, okay? It's that I would put way up there. Write it down because it's very important, okay? Because if you don't listen to what their needs are and take the time to understand what their needs are, whether you get that job or not, you have just lost that customer. Be direct and to the point. That's pretty common sense. Make it look professional. I had one of my customers from Joomla showroom wanted to come and see this presentation, and back in New England when I gave this presentation, Paul Orwig and Diane Henning from OSM sat in on it, and they're both, at the time they were both on the magazine, now it's just Diane. They asked me to take this presentation and write a magazine article on it. So I wrote 3 months worth of magazine articles on this session that you're sitting in. And one of my customers from Joomla showroom read those articles, and she came back to me and she says, Mike, I need help. I'm not getting the jobs. I'm spending like 8 hours on these things, and it doesn't matter what I do, I'm writing good proposals and I'm just not getting them. I said, send me one. Send me the best one you've done in the past year. I got this thing, and I was like, I wouldn't hire her either. and I emailed her back and I told her that. I said, this looks horrible, you know? Huh?
What did you see was wrong?
Just, there was no format. It was all over the place, okay? I mean, it wasn't structured, and we'll talk about that too. It wasn't structured, and it was extremely read, and it was like a moving target on 5 pages. And I'm like, wow, it's no wonder. Yeah.
I think that be direct and to the point is real important because they don't want to read a lot.
Right, exactly. And we'll talk about that too. She over-explained everything, okay? And it was paragraphs. Like I said, it was 5 pages long. It was paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs. Nothing flowed. And I'm like, these people don't even know what VirtueMart is, and you're telling them how long VirtueMart's been in existence and blah, blah. I'm like, they don't care about that. They need to see the word shopping cart. Yeah. And we're gonna have, and it has these features that you need, that you requested and that you need, and we'll tie it in with authorized.net or whatever, you know, and maybe put in parentheses, an SSL certificate is required to use this payment gateway or something like that. You know, that's what I do. But I mean, it had none of that. And I'm like, it's no wonder she's not getting the job. So I consulted with her. I showed her some of my stuff, and she's getting jobs now, and she loves it, you know. And her business was failing simply because she did not know how to write a nice proposal. She had all the ideas, but she didn't know how to put it together. Okay? Yes.
I'm a real world example of that. I used to put out just simple one-page overview of what your project would consist of. And sometimes I get a job, sometimes I didn't. I switched that now to a pre-formatted proposal. It's usually about 5 or 6 pages long. It's got a little bit about me, but I go into details about what their project does for them. And
Right.
that whole paragraph alone, I think, is what's selling it. Just that I understand what it is that they're looking for. And now I'm getting every proposal I put out. I've got.
I'll show you guys at the end. I'll show you a real world proposal where I changed the names and the dollar amounts and all that stuff that I sent to somebody, and I changed it just this morning before I left the hotel so that I could show it to you. And then I'll show you how long my contract is. It's pretty damn long, okay?
Yeah,
And that's why I need an hour to talk about contracts, because I spent a hell of a lot of money and a hell of a lot of time putting this contract together to cover my butt.
That's
okay?
what I was wondering about.
Yeah, we'll talk extensively about contracts. So, all right, never overpromise. Something we talked about. I don't know how many times I used to do this. Okay, I'm speaking from experience. I've overextended myself, and I see Scott nodding his head with a big smile. Yes, 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 yes. You know, I can do it all.
Everything.
Bull crap. Nobody can do it all. Okay, nobody can. I don't care how many employees you've got that do different things. Nobody, no company can do it all, okay? The minute you think you do, the minute you're gonna get bit, okay? So you have to know what your comfort zone is. And you can slightly go outside that box, okay, at a time. And when you do, you should, because that means you're growing, you know, mentally, you're learning, okay, and you're doing more, okay. But if you don't know what that threshold is of your comfort zone, you don't know how far out of that box you're stepping, okay. So you need to have a realistic grasp of what your capabilities are that you can handle. Oh, one thing, if I can go back. Submit just in time. This is very important. Remember earlier I told you you need to reply and ask for deadlines on when you should submit a proposal? What do you think I mean by submit just in time?
5 minutes before.
Okay. Everything that I'm saying in this 2-hour presentation, you'll probably remember the last 10 minutes. Okay? And that's okay. And I realize that because it's a lot to take in. But you're going to remember what I tell you at the end, most of all. And that's why you have to write notes. Okay? If you submit just in time, you are one of the last and most freshest proposals that they're going to read. They're not going to remember the guy that submitted in the beginning. Now there's other reasons. I'll get to you in a sec. There's other reasons that you should do that. Okay, not just to say fresh in their mind, but say they give a 30 or a 45-day window. Big companies will do that, okay, to process everything. And they say, we're going to do something mid-November, okay, is when we're going to look at all the RFPs, and we're going to have probably 50 people looking at this stuff, you know, and maybe even 50 proposals to look through. And then we're going to narrow it down to 10 and then 5, okay? If you submit just in time, you're fresh, they're going to remember you more than they remembered the guy 30 days ago. Guaranteed. Guaranteed they're going to remember you more than that. Second thing is, in a 45-day window, do you think things might change? How many of your clients change their mind constantly?
They're still learning what they
Really?
want.
Mine don't. Mine never change their mind. Okay? That's the other reason. Do you want to be the first one submitting a proposal and then that company coming back and say, oh, we changed all our requirements, do it all over again? What's that do to your time? Pisses you off too. Huh?
I thought we were supposed to have the ability village business is mine.
When you figure that out, you're working for me. All right, you had a question? Mary?
Yeah, I was just going to say that the psychological construct is that primacy and recency are equal. So it's the people in the middle that get washed out. But your second point about about things changing.
That's why I put your
Recency,
question on hold,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I knew
We
you were going to
anticipated
tie
it was
into
gonna
that.
be
Yes,
primacy and
I've
recency.
done this proposal or presentation before.
Actually,
What's your
define just in
recommendation
time.
in terms of submission? Submit electronic, submit on paper?
Yeah, well, that would be part of the requirements. What are their
What if
their
there isn't?
requirements for replying? Is it mail? How many copies? Electronic. Does it have to be a PDF format? Certain weird things does it have to be in. I've had people request that I send them my proposal in JPEG. Yeah, red flags. I mean, I'm seriously, like, I sent them a PDF and they're like, can you send that in a JPEG? Well, I've already done the damn proposal. Okay. Otherwise I would have never, if I would have known that up front, I would have never bothered. That's one of those red flags, that you're like, wow, weird. Do you want that web optimized?
But if there is no such requirement, do you have a feeling about what is the perception of someone getting a nice folder with your thing inside, very professional, hard copy, versus a PDF?
I've never sent
with-
a nice folder.
Okay.
Okay, they
So,
get
a
my
PDF
paper proposal, and if it's in the mail,
Mhm.
it's unstable. Okay. Otherwise, it's electronic. And I do the reason I do it unstapled is because
They make
I'll let
copies.
them do it because they will make copies.
Right.
Okay. And every one of my pages are numbered. Okay, so it's very easy to see if there's a page missing. So that's how I will package it with just a paper clip. Okay.
Define just in time.
Define just in time. Probably 2 days before. Okay, I wouldn't wait until the last day. Just relatively close, within the last probably few days, because basically they've already looked at all these proposals as they're coming in. You want them to give them a couple days, 2 or 3 days, depending on the day of the week or something like that. If their deadline's on, say, a Sunday, you want to get it in maybe the Wednesday before. Give them a few days to look at it, and I'll tell you, since you're all missing the email marketing thing, they're probably talking about this. At least they should be if they've done the research. Whenever you're doing email marketing or sending very important scheduled emails, and this would be considered a scheduled email because you have to hit a certain target date type of thing, right? You should send it by 7 a.m. in the morning, preferably on a Tuesday. Believe it or not, statistically, it's the highest click-through rate on emails, okay? People come into work, what's the very first thing they do when they boot up their computer? They check their emails. People are more alert in the morning during the weekday. Okay? The reason you don't send it on a Monday, they could still be hungover from the weekend before. Okay? Laugh, but it's true. Okay? Tuesday mornings, by then they're starting to get in the groove. They're more excited. They've been through their Monday morning meetings and hell through with the boss or whatever. By Friday, they just don't give a shit. Period. Okay? So Tuesdays, Wednesdays, it's a pretty good day to send your emails. Always send them in the morning if you can schedule it. Okay? Otherwise, it doesn't matter. I've sent stuff at 10 at night, because I know the client works 24/7 like I do sometimes. So, if it's a bigger company like that, try to send it early in the morning, and just, if you're using the mail client, that you can schedule it the night before and say you're done. I don't want to send it at 10 o'clock. I'll schedule it for 7 in the morning. It'll be there when they wake up, and start work. Yeah.
How do you differentiate different types of proposals? Those for, let's say, small businesses versus you're talking here about,
The question is,
corporate
how do you
proposal.
define the type of proposal you're giving people
Mhm.
from a corporate type your
This is-
e-commerce, corporate.
This is pretty,
That's your experience.
Okay.
There's certain things you just have to learn from experience, and you have to know how to have experience in reading customers. It's all part of sales,
Yeah.
okay? Take sales class. They teach you how to read people. They teach you how to deal with people, okay? A lot of that, all I can say is it's experience.
I used to write government proposals, and they're a whole different.
That's a whole
ballgame
different ballgame.
Than, commercial, but then there's little guys.
Yeah.
And they don't even understand this process.
All right, what I've got up here, the whole process that we're talking about, I'm talking, this is for your, this is going to cover the majority, the middle majority of all your customers, okay? Of the population of potential clients that we have out there, okay? And the very, very, very small few little jobs, the mom and pop type stores that are down here, that, it's just the business owner and that's it, running a bookstore. Those kind of people, they can only afford the $5,000 or $500 to $1,000 type job. You don't want those, okay? You want to target that middle section, because that middle section are going to be the easiest to work with. They're going to be your easiest to build and complete and get paid. When you above that line, you're talking enterprise. Yeah, it's big, big money, but it's big, big effort and a long time to get paid, okay? Those are great to focus on once you get to that level, okay? I'd say the majority of the people in this room are not at that level, okay? The majority of people I see at Joomla days are not at that level. So I'm going to tell you, focus on that middle 60%, okay? And leave the top 20 and the bottom 20 alone, okay? Because that's where you're going to find for your abilities, okay? And there may be a few exceptions in here, but that is going to be where you're going to find the perfect fit in your target audience, okay?
And what is that range, do you think? 5,000 to 100,000?
It changes. I got people that pay me $5,000 for a site where someone else wouldn't think about paying me $2,000. And it's value is a perception, right? Something is only worth what somebody's willing to pay for. Bottom line. That's why we have MSRPs on our cars. But that's not what it's worth, okay? That's the value of the car, but it's not what it's worth. It's worth what someone's willing to pay and how much you're willing to haggle, okay? Otherwise, we'd all be paying the exact same prices for every single car, okay? For every Chevy Impala out there across the country. It doesn't work that way. This is a basic outline of a proposal, of a general professional proposal, okay? This may be, you may take some of this and not use it, and you may use all of it, okay? I always include a cover letter. I always include a title page. And I will show you at the end an example of a title page. It's your basic, this proposal is for a Joomla 2.5 website for this company. Brochure site, e-commerce site. Very basic. Proposal number goes at the end of it, okay? We'll talk about that in a minute. I always include a table of contents, period. These top three in the introduction pages are mandatory on mine. I do not include a non-disclosure unless the customer requires it, okay? And then it becomes part of the proposal, which later becomes part of the contract, okay? That's why I have a contractual item in here. I always include an executive summary, which is just a basic couple paragraphs depending on how big the project is. What is it we're doing for this client? Plain English, easy to read stuff, okay? A SWOT analysis, you guys know what a SWOT analysis is? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, okay? That's when you analyze how strong is this company, project, and you identify, threats that are potential problems that you may have during this, because they may not know, or they may have told you this stuff over the phone. Remember I told you they want to make sure you're listening to them. If that company has come to you with a SWOT type, conversation, to where they're telling you that they've already identified their strengths, weaknesses, and so forth, and opportunities, this is where you can easily put that in a few bullet points. I'm talking 4 paragraphs, one for each one, and you can say, yes, I was listening, and this is a recap of what we said. Okay, you're going to recap a lot of stuff that you already know from your phone conversations or personal conversations you had. Okay? I do not include that all the time. Okay? On the upper end client list, I definitely do, because I want them to know that I'm listening. Okay? Smaller jobs, I don't bother. A solution strategy, I do not always include. And the reason for that, I kind of roll it into my project scope. Now, my project scope, I'll show you an example later. It is strictly bullet points. That's it. Shopping cart dash. We're going to use a shopping cart that will have this functionality, and then I might list some functionalities that they told me they need. It's another way of reiterating, you've already done the research, you have a solution for them, okay? I keep it simple, easy to read. You gotta make sure it's, everything that you write, you need to be able to hand to a 5th grader and tell them, do you understand this? And if that 5th grader says no, then chances are some of your clients may not know, okay? It has to be that, purely that simple, okay? Yes?
What's in the executive summary that isn't in the other?
Executive summary is just an overview of the project. It's just you and your client's overview of generally what are we doing here, okay? That's it. It's almost a useless page that they can throw out and that they'll skim over. Yeah, we already discussed this on the phone, who cares?
That also could prove that you're listening to, right?
Yes, absolutely. But you have to give an overview of what it is, because your proposal, you sell that job, will become part of your contract.
Yeah.
It is verbiage that is pertinent. It does not have to be very detailed. I was talking to the gentleman, just got up and left last night. You can take your contracts and be so detailed that it undetails them. And we'll talk about that later. You can almost be too specific. So you need to keep everything generalized, okay? Because when you make things too pinpoint, then you've basically excluded everything around the circle within a certain zone around it. And then they can pinpoint that and say, you didn't do this, but you said you needed this. Or we talked about this, but now you kind of leave it more general and it leaves it open for everybody, okay?
So, with the project scope, you mentioned installation or setup of a shopping cart. What about who populates that shopping cart? Do you specify, how many pieces of merchandise?
That's a great point. I put that right in there. That for one, when I set up shopping carts and build shopping carts, I automatically tell them we're going to set up 2 categories, and inside each category is going to have 5 dummy products, sample. I do not want the responsibility of worrying about their pictures and their damn descriptions, okay? That's their problem on content, okay? That's something that I can't stand, is waiting for someone to give me content, okay? So I love dummy lips and sample content, and that's what they get, okay? Unless I specifically, if I'm doing a site rebuild, there's already content there, great. Or if they've already have it ready to go. But if they don't have it ready to go and you need, that's something you need to find out from them on the phone. If they say, no, I can have it to you in a week, yeah, right. You know it's BS. You know you won't have it, okay? Not in most cases, okay? I don't care how professional that company is, it does not matter, okay? For example, I built my own wife's boss, who's a very prominent attorney in the town I live in. And she's worked for this guy for like 15 years. Built him a site, get me content. It's been up on the server with dummy Libsyn content behind the site offline login for 8 months.
Wow.
I got paid, I'm done. Wash my
How do you
hands.
get paid? I mean, that's what I get.
I didn't contract for content.
Yeah, but
I told them, you supply it to me, I'll copy paste verbatim what you give me.
That's where
You don't worry about content. That is not your job because you do not know their business well enough to write content for their business. Do you? Okay. I wouldn't trust, somebody to write the content for my business unless they were in my business and knew my business, my industry very, very well.
I found that the hardest part about doing websites is getting content from people. That's always my hardest thing. So when I finish and I get paid and I see that nothing's happening, then I bring in the other division of my company, which does content for a reduced fee. And so I get them on the back end that way.
Yes, that's a great point. We're going to talk a little bit more about this in the contract part because you will have limitations and deadlines in your contract. And that is your out, okay?
that's what I was.
How do you get a client to pay the remaining balance when they're expecting the site to be live, but they can't go?
I usually threaten them. And I'm like,
That's the key question.
Yeah, but you don't want your wife to lose her job.
yeah, Chicago, yo.
Because they want it booked live.
Right, but they're not going to go live because they're not.
You know what?
Client,
We'll we'll discuss that in great detail soon.
All right, Mike,
But let's get going through this if you don't mind, because it's starting to take longer, and I know you're going to have a lot of questions when it gets to the contract.
Quickly, regarding that lawyer website that you did,
Yeah.
and it did, blank pages, dummy pages, that could be a disadvantage to you sometimes if your name is on that website, because people might go to it.
Note, I said it's behind the site offline.
Oh,
I never made that public, and it's sitting on subdomain and cloud access. It's not on a live domain. I would never do that. I've never handed a site over like that. It's always, I have an excellent extension at Joomla Showroom that's free. You should all go get it. It's called Site Lock. You got the Joomla site offline feature built in the core. This replaces that, okay? You'll never have to use that feature in your global configuration. Site Lock, you got your WYSIWYG editor, you can put whatever you want, and it creates a splash page, and you can set up logins that are not Joomla users. You give them a name and a password, okay, and it works just like HT Access. It'll automatically create a splash page, and it says, if you are a developer of this website, log in below. Login box, you log in, and then you view the site as if it were a public site. You're not logged into the site itself, okay? As in, you don't have to set up a user in Joomla for this, okay? You can give multiple people. They have no access to edit articles with the icons and all that stuff showing up in the front end. It's awesome. So you can put whatever verbiage you want on there, and that will keep it from being scanned, and you can actually embed newsletter signups, stuff like that. It's great for things like that when you have to deliver a site that's in that state. Okay, so I just thought I'd throw that out there because it is helpful, and that's why we Cloud Access developed it actually, and then I took it over from them. So and we extended it and made it a little nicer for the public. So definitely that's like one of the must-have extensions in your toolbox that you should be using.
Just a quick question. What's the difference between SiteLock and just building their testing site or the site in a testing folder behind,
like on
away?
localhost or something
yeah, on
like
the
that?
host, the same host.
Well, that's fine, but if you're gonna put it up on their server so
Right.
that they can they can access it publicly and stuff. You want to lock down that site so that search engines cannot scan it and view that dummy lip sync content. Okay, so with site lock, you can format the text just like you would any other page on your website, and it's just a blank white page with formatted text and images and all that stuff, just like an article. Okay, it uses the same Joomla, whatever your preferred Joomla text editor is, or WYSIWYG editor, but it will. You can make it look and say what you want, so that the search engines don't hit that site offline page and it says site is offline. You know, you can add a lot more text that's keyworded and things like that, and it'll scan it and at least not hit them too hard. Or you can set it up to scan certain keywords and tell all about the company while that's being done. So now the search engines are scanning that page, and at least it's getting some kind of starting to get some kind of page rank. You know, even if it's one, it's something. Okay, so that was just, I got off track with that, but it's a good little nugget. So,
Thank you.
proposal tools. Proposal Kit Pro is probably the best tool I've ever spent $215 on. Okay, it is a wealth of over 3,000 documents. I took their contract templates. They've got contract templates for contractors, human resources, and you know, the gamut. I couldn't even put a page together that would list even remotely partially what they have. They've got a lot of templates that are very nice, template packs you can buy to give your proposals different looks. They're just pre-built proposal templates, and they're really, really nice, and I think it's a very valuable tool. They've even got hosting contracts. They've got website maintenance contracts. They've got, you know, website with a CD development contract if you're making a CD, you know, some kind of CD media or DVD media, stuff like that. Like, it's crazy the amount of stuff and scenarios they have in there, and tons of samples. I highly recommend it because it's been a valuable investment for me, and it helped me go from amateur to professional. Okay.
So is it a wizard or a template or both?
They've got a wizard for Windows only, and it's a Word macro. Wizard is what it is. And you just open it up, fill in your information, your client's information, and it'll automatically populate all kinds of different stuff in the document. It's really sweet.
They do it for Mac also?
They don't have the wizard for Mac, okay? But you can buy the kit, and it's documents.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's Word documents, you know, and they're just formatted in template. It's really simple, and I've taken that, extended and tweaked the living hell out of it, okay, and made it real world applicable. If you're looking for a lot of jump start stuff, that's where this is perfect, okay. And then I made my own templates, okay, based on that. And I'll show you some of them, and I'll share them with anybody that wants them. Just send me an email, and I'll give you my contact information. Upsells and forgettables, pretty important stuff. I'm going to start going a little faster so I can get into the contracts. These are items you can charge extra for, but you probably aren't, as an additional service. Okay, I've seen so many of my friends just automatically including stuff, and I don't, and I have no problem adding them on because technically they should be added on as an additional sale, and we'll go through that. Ongoing maintenance and updates after you build the site. That should always be part of your selling point, and say, you know, we're going to build this site for you, and I usually do this after I've signed the contract for building the site. If I haven't talked to them about it, or they haven't inquired about it, you do realize the site's going to take some maintenance, don't you? With updates and security patches. And when you mention security, bells and whistles go off in all kinds of people's heads, right? So that's a great way of upselling some ongoing maintenance contracts. And I do have a separate contract for that. I never include it in one contract. They're two completely separate contracts. Backup services How many of you throw Akiba in every single one of your sites, no matter what? Okay, even your client sites? You include setting up backup services mostly in your basic bare bones web design projects? You could be making more money.
I do. I like.
Yeah.
This is.
It's-
Always included.
You just
I
got a
never want to
microphone.
discourage backup services ever, because I'm about to tell you, if you're not doing contracts on every single job you do, it's the same as not doing backups on every single site you do. Okay, it's that important, but it is an extra service. I do
Huh.
offsite Amazon S3 backups, and it takes time to set up Akiba. Okay, that time you should be getting paid for. Okay, the cost of Akiba isn't. It's one of the higher price extensions, especially if you're getting admin tools with it. You know, in the package, it's one of the higher price. So you should be getting paid for that. It should be part of, you know, licensing costs and stuff like that. You shouldn't be eating those costs. There's no reason for you to. Yeah.
I'm sorry, about eating licensing costs and things. I have a lot of developer contracts. How do you build that in?
I'll show you in my examples. I'm going to give you guys a lot of information, a lot of good nuggets that you, especially if you're not like at the level of volume that I do, and it's strictly volume that's allowed me to be able to do this stuff, so, and learn what I need to do, to where I may have a more of an advantage of that than anybody else in this room because of the position I'm in with the extensions and stuff. So that's why I know from experience and a lot of research of how to do this stuff and what works. Offsite backups, like I mentioned, I sell offsite backup storage on my Amazon S3 server. You know, I charge X dollar amount per month. People pay for it. And I said, what if, especially if it's on their server. You know, what if their server goes down? What if my server goes down? It doesn't matter. Servers go down. A lot of people have it happen to them. I know a guy who deleted an entire server.
What?
Yeah. So, it happens. So I really push offsite backups, you know, to Amazon S3. And at least I have it synchronized and everything, and it's all redundant storage. So it costs you money to have an Amazon S3 storage account. You got to pass some of that along, you know, and, you know, percentage-wise, I make a pretty good buck on it, you know, but you have to have it, and that's security, and you have to maintain it. You have to test the backups once in a while if you're going to charge for backup services. Okay, so there is some work involved. It's not free money. Okay.
Do you offer backup services for companies that are pretty big and probably would have their own SOTA backup service?
Yeah. SEO services. I mean, it's consulting. It's not part of a website development job. Okay, you optimizing their content, you know, and full URL optimization with using like SH404 SEF is not part of a web development job unless you specifically talk to them about it and make it part of your proposal. Okay, but these are things you should be adding time for and not just including it. Okay. Search engine marketing services. Search engine marketing services. That's pretty simple. Logo design, graphic design, extension styling. This is a big one. I tell my clients and I make sure that they understand we're going to use some Joomla extensions on your site. They will work and they will fit, you know, within your template, and they will look decent. They may not look the way you specifically want them to look. And that's not my fault. Because I didn't build the damn things. And I didn't choose, you know, I didn't make the template automatically override the extension. You need to charge for that. Okay? So if someone comes back to you and says, you know, I'm really not liking this, and I don't like these icons, and you know what? Booyah! Here, let me pull out my wallet so I can put your money in it. I mean, you have to do that, right? You should never just do that. There's no reason for you to. And 90% of the time, a client will not even question it. You know, I think the biggest fear, and I have a feeling that you're this way, with everything that you've been sitting up there. You know, I have a feeling that, and when I first started out, I was this way too. I have a feeling that it's a fear of asking for more money or telling somebody that they have to spend more money. And it's a big fear that, like, because you don't want to disappoint people, right? Or look bad yourself. You have to eliminate that and get that out of your head and be very confident, okay? It's a confidence thing. You have to be confident that you can go to them and explain why it's not included. Okay, you have to back up what you're asking for. That's it. Everything is, if you're going to tell somebody something, you better back it up, period.
One thing, maybe you'll hit it as the next bullet point, but graphics. Graphics is always something that kind of burns me.
Content creation, security, social networking, analytics setup, print design, hosting, email setup like Google Apps or otherwise, third-party app integrations, email newsletters, advertisement, website monitoring. Logo design would be in your graphic design. Any graphic design is, unless it's template, is not part of a web design, a web development job, or web assembly. There's a difference between, in my opinion, there's a difference between a designer and what the Joomla world has automatically created as what I term a website assembler, a Joomla assembler. And that's just a person that grabs the off-shelf templates, off-shelf extensions, organizes them and assembles them in the website, and sets them up and calls himself a web designer. If that's what you're doing, you are not a web designer. You are a Joomla assembler, okay? A true designer is someone who can Photoshop a design and possibly be a front-end developer and turn that design into a template, okay? It's nothing against you if that's what you're doing. That's fine. It's just the real world, okay? And full-blown graphic design should be an extra charge, okay? If you're doing site assembly work, it's not included, okay? So you should be charging extra for that.
Mike, are you going to make this presentation available
Yeah,
to us?
I'll give you the link at the end.
But 1 second before that last slide. So those are upsells, and do you put those in your proposal as not included? Or do you put them in your contract as not included?
What's in my proposal is included. If it's not specifically in my proposal, it's not included. It's that simple, okay? If I write a proposal for a web design job and that client automatically assumes I'm doing SEO work, you know, or search engine marketing for them, you know, then there was a communication breakdown on both sides maybe, and that's you have to specifically say, we do offer other services that may be this and this and this to try and upsell. You're always going to try and upsell, okay, always. But it's a communication thing. That's what it all comes down to.
Do you want us to ask your questions? Because I noticed that one session is already over, so you're
Yeah,
going to run
I'm
short.
trying to fly through this, so we are going to have to limit questions.
Let's save our questions for the end.
Okay. Yeah, you can see me afterwards too. Okay. Bottom line, price doesn't matter when you know the budget. The budget can always be adjusted. Budgets are a guideline, period. Okay. You got president of a company, and their marketing team comes into them and to the CEOs of the company, and they say, we have to get a new website. It's 5 years old. It's so outdated. It's not working for us. And that CEO is not, I mean, that's not his thing anymore. He hired marketing people to handle that stuff, right? He may say, roughly, basically, he's like, well, what are we talking here? And they're going to say, well, how much can I spend? He's got to pull a number out of you know where. He's going to say, you got 10 grand. Okay, can you get something done for 10 grand? It's probably going to be a 30 grand job, you know, at that point, sorry. You know, they just got a number thrown at them. So they're going to tell you they got a $10,000 budget. Because that's the number they were told. And they don't know any different, okay? Budgets are just a guideline. They don't matter, in my opinion. They can always be adjusted unless you're tough. I don't ask people what their budget is anymore. I've learned to just flat out say, what are you willing to spend on this to make it happen, and what can you afford right now? I don't say what can you afford right now in your pocket. Because that's what matters, because you want to make sure they have the money right now to pay you right now when it's done. Otherwise, you shouldn't be contracting with them if they have to raise capital or something, or wait until their next paycheck, you know? So that's a very good approach that I've been doing. Only include the essentials. If you can, like I said, upsell separate items wherever possible, break into the project into phases. Okay, this is really important. I've been able to sell so many more jobs by saying, we can cut your costs and meet your initial budget, what you can afford as a phase one. Then later I can give you XXX from your wish list, because everybody has a wish list, right? So you can say, I can meet your needs, and these are what you need. You don't need the fluff right now. We can add some fluff later in phase two when you can afford it. I said, just because we build it now doesn't mean it's over. It can be a living, breathing entity, you know, and be built on. They love that. Trust me, they love that. Because you're looking out for their best interest, and they know it's expandable, okay? You gave them an out. This is the number one thing, that's why it's all caps. Ask for the job. Tell them you want to be the vendor of choice. Most people don't do this, believe it or not. You know, say, have you chosen somebody? No, you call them up and say, I'm calling you because I want this job and I want to work with you and I feel we're a good fit for your company. And say it with confidence. You should be confident enough to say that, okay? Be bold, okay? Don't be arrogant, just be bold and confident, okay?
A little arrogant.
You can be a little arrogant. Thank the prospect for the opportunity. Always thank people. I usually, one of the first things I do in my cover letter is a thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for us to write this proposal for you. Okay? Always thank them right up front. Follow up and ask for feedback if you do not get it. How many of you don't get jobs? How many people do you call and say, is there a reason why I didn't get it? Yeah, nobody really does that.
Yeah, I do.
How do you know where you missed the ball? Because you obviously missed the ball if you didn't get it. Okay? Was it strictly a price thing? Fine. You can't control what other people can afford. That's nothing. You know? You can't say, man, I wish I would have done it cheaper. If you wish you would have done it cheaper, you would have wrote the proposal cheaper up front. Okay? Be confident in what you're writing and proposing. Okay? Anybody got to take a pee? My cup's almost empty. All right, let's talk about covering your butt now that you've got the contract, or now that you're about to write the contract. Okay? How many of you write a contract on every single job that you do? I mean, every single job, whether it's 200 or 200,000.
I can't admit to that.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, sometimes a friend.
I know a lot of people who do that, and they've been sued many times, and they've lost because it's improperly written. Okay? Just because you have a contract doesn't mean it's a good contract. You should always have it professionally reviewed. This part of my presentation, I'm going to be brutal. Okay? This, I'll tell you right now, this is the negative part of this entire presentation. Okay? This is not going to be a cheerleading session. In helping you make business, I'm going to beat your butts. Okay? Hard. It's very negative because why do we have contracts? Because shit goes wrong. Period. All right? When shit goes wrong and hits the fan, what's going to cover your ass? An attorney backing you up with a contract that was signed by both parties. Okay? So, bottom line, by nature, it's a negative thing, okay? And I'm gonna tell you how to do it to your benefit, okay? There's a thing called a client-side contract and the web designer developer contract, site, centered contract, okay? Mine is more the right side, okay? Because my ass is on the line when I'm in court, okay? And you don't know what kind of weird people you're gonna be dealing with. They don't know you any better. You're not friends with your clients. And if you are, and you're doing work for them, while you're working for them, you are not their friend. Let me make that 100% perfectly clear. Even though they think you are, all friendship stops, and at that point, it is a business relationship. And you have to tell them that. And say, we are friends outside of this. But within this circle, we are not friends. You are a client, and I am your vendor.
Doesn't it seem like you tend to have more problems with friends than...
That's exactly where I'm going with this. And I speak 100% from experience on this, okay? And I've had to do this, and it was I've had friends look at me like, who the hell do you think you are? Seriously. And I tell them, I'm doing this to protect our friendship, period. That's all it is. And your friendship will end up stronger, and they will appreciate it, okay? Never had, when I didn't do this, I've lost friends because I've had problems with them, like you said, okay? When I started doing this, since then, no problems, not one. And they're happy, and I taught them a little bit more about business by doing it, okay? Let's talk about some 101 type stuff. They separate the professionals from the amateurs, period. And I know there's a lot of amateurs in the room because you're not writing good contracts, okay? And you've never researched it, you just found something on the web and copied it and threw it together and think you're good, okay? I'm gonna change your mind on that real hard. If you haven't seen it, pardon my French, fuck you, pay me, is an excellent video to watch. Google it. This guy, Mike, does a presentation just like this with his attorney sitting on the side. And this guy's brutal, it is not work friendly. It's very explicit language, okay? Even the title, obviously. But it is a wealth of knowledge. And a lot of it's about 45 minutes, a lot of this is modeled based after that and more, okay? And it's really good. Just the way they present it is it's really good, okay? It's accountability for both parties. They're gonna be able to hold you accountable, which is what a lot of you need, and you're gonna hold them accountable for getting you content on time, okay? And not only content, proper content, okay? It's not a matter of trust. You gotta tell your friends that, okay? You're doing client work and they're like, what, don't you trust me? Damn right I don't trust you, I don't know you. And you shouldn't trust me because you don't know me, okay? It's that simple, and if your clients refuse to do it, don't do business with them, period. I don't know how many times I've turned jobs down because that tells me right there they're not a professional. And I don't want those types of clients. I want A+ clients, okay? Don't start a job without them, okay? I take a 50% non-refundable down payment on every job I do, no matter how big or small. It does. If it's small, I'll take 100%, but the majority of everything I do, non-refundable, 50% down payment, okay? I don't care how much money I've got sitting in the bank, I'm not starting that job until I've got a contract signed along with that payment, okay? Just because they pay you any amount of money does not mean that you're obligated. Yeah.
I have a lot of clients that ask to rather do it in thirds.
Well, that's fine, milestone. I'm just saying, my initial payment, non-refundable. I'm making their ass commit. If they want me to commit to them and be in full boat, I'm gonna force them to be the same way with me, okay? At least up front. And I wanna make sure that they ain't gonna change their mind right up front, okay? Because at that point, you spend a lot of time into that client, okay? Developing that relationship and trying to sell that job. So you should, at that point, if they're gonna pull the trigger, you know, you can't go back. Get an attorney, they're your business bodyguard. I'm gonna give you an example of what happened to me. I had a client told me she had a very, very, very high profile website, okay? And I'm not gonna mention it because I'm under NDA, but her site was hacked and her dev site was hacked pretty severely, and she needed a lot of work done to it. So I charged her, did the proposal, signed the contract on it, and we did the work, okay? Everything was fine, and she said, hey, I need a lot of other programming work done. I'm not happy with the current developers, and that's why I had you fix this, so I'd like to do continuous development with you. So I'm like, we charge X an hour, it'll be straight time. I can give you a rough guess of what certain things will cost, you know, but we really don't know until we're in there, you know. We didn't build your site, and I'm not very familiar with it. All I did was clean up some hack stuff and add some security stuff in it, you know, so she was fine with that. I made the mistake of not signing an ongoing maintenance contract, ongoing development contract. I told her over the phone, and we've already got a contract signed, no big deal. You know, it'd be pretty much the same anyway. So she goes into my project management system where me and all my staff are in there, and she's just posting support ticket after support ticket after support ticket after support ticket for 2 weeks. Do this and this and this and this, and this is wrong, this is buggy, we want this changed, you know, do some template overrides here and there. So we're giving her general quotes on most of the stuff, and she's like, go, go, go. Just get it done. I don't care, just get it done. So we're like, okay, we get all that done. Then she starts adding more and more and more again, like a whole other round another week later. So we're like, get it done, get it done. You know, she's like on the ball. So for that month, I sent her a $2,800 bill. And she probably gasped when she saw it by the email that I got. And she says, I never thought it'd be that much. And I'm like, well, we quoted you on all the initial stuff, and you said you didn't care, and then you kept posting more and more stuff. And you didn't ask for a quote, you just said do it. So we did it. And she came back and said she wasn't paying it. So I'm like, all right, in good faith, maybe we didn't communicate enough by giving her quotes, taking the time to give her a rough estimate on the second week worth of stuff that she posted. So I said, I'll knock $400 off. So I revise it and I send her a $2,400 bill. And she comes back. I don't hear from her for a week after many emails. And then she says, we'll make this go away today and I'll pay you $1,800. And then I'm done with you. I'm like, okay. Hey, it's Mike. Yeah, remember the contract I had you go over? I'm talking to my attorney now. Yeah, I got a customer, I explained it to him, and what's he tell me? Take the money, Mike.
That's right.
And I'm like, it's a lot of freaking money. I'm like, she's screwing me out of $1,000 here. I'm like, I don't think that's right. So he's like, what's your contract state? He says, I don't remember. It's been a while since I reviewed it. He says, what's it state? You know, I'm like, well, what recourse do I have? He pulls out my contracts, and we're looking at them on the phone together, and he says, take the money, Mike. He says, you're going to spend $200 filing fee in court. You're going to spend 3 days total of your time in court. Is that worth $1,000 to you? Because your time's more valuable than $1,000 for 3 days and a $200 filing fee. And then you're gonna have to pay my fees. And I'm like, shit, you know, that sucks. And I took the $1,800 and learned from it. And that is what caused this presentation to be written for you today, okay? I did not have her, why did he tell me that? Because I did not write a separate contract for the maintenance. That's where I screwed up, okay? I assumed that the other one could carry on, but that other one was tied to the first proposal. And there never was a second proposal, even though I had all this documentation in the database in my project management system. So,
That wouldn't have changed the fundamentals of the,
Yeah.
you still have to go and spend that kind of money. to
right,
get it.
it wouldn't have.
Yeah.
She was just taking advantage of it. She probably
Yeah.
had intentions of doing that from the beginning.
So,
You're lucky you got it.
but he said, had I had a contract for the maintenance part, I would have had a full leg to stand on. And I didn't, okay? That's how important it is to make sure you write a contract for every single thing you do. I've got a client that I've built 13 sites and they're a Fortune 500, or they're a Fortune 50, okay? Very, very large name. Built 13 sites for them within 1 year. Every single one of those sites, every single thing that I've done for them, you know, and it wasn't just one time thing. They'd come back and say, I need, you know, features added here or a new feature here, you know, for this specific part of the world's needs, you know, type stuff. And contract every single time. And they don't question it. It's part of business.
Don't you have in your contract that the site doesn't go live until you get paid? Like in all my contracts.
Well, in this case, it was already a live site.
Okay.
Site already existed.
Like I don't.
It was
doesn't
hacked.
the
They
site
found
will
me to
not go
de-hack
live
it.
with me
I put it up and it was
unless I
live.
get paid. Until
Now
I get
this is-
paid, the site doesn't
We'll
go
talk.
live.
We'll talk about that stuff too.
Okay.
Okay. You have more power than you think, as long as you have a contract. Okay. You have more power than you think when you're negotiating a contract. Okay. I got another big client. They have thousands of vendors that do business with them around the world. Every single one of them are set at a 45-day payment period. And I said, I won't do it. My payment schedule is 7-day net. And they said, hell no, 45 days. And I said, bullshit. I said, I'll come down to 15. And after me almost walking away from bringing them on as a client, I'm the only one in the world that's got 15-day net with them. Okay? And sometimes they forget and they pay me at 45. But but at least I can yell at them if I'm low on money in the bank and say, give me my damn check. You know, now you got to overnight it. You know, type
If it
stuff.
comes in at 45, you're still doing pretty good.
Yeah. So, I mean, but clear definitions, clear expectations. We're talking contracts now. Same as the proposals, being clear bullet pointed type stuff. You got to do the same thing with your contracts. Reference third party and external documents in the appendix. The first page of my contract is the appendix page. And if I need more, I'll make more appendix pages, but that's first page, okay?
What do you mean by that?
I'll show you later if you don't understand it. Set deadlines and consequences, okay? What the hell's a deadline if there's no consequences? Okay? What if they don't pay you? You asked earlier. There's consequences for payment. Deadlines not being met with interest. And if you don't pay me, I own your shit. Intellectual property transfers upon full payment with me, okay? There's consequences. And if you don't outline that very clearly in your contract, in plain text English, and I'm talking not lawyer speak, okay? My attorney wrote up this elaborate crap, and I said, what the hell does this mean? He said, oh, that means you're protected, and I'm like, no, we're gonna sit down, we're rewriting this in my mind now, you know, because I'm the kind of person that I'm dealing with out there. I'm not dealing with your language. So You have to be very, very clear on stuff like that.
I also see people set deadlines for content delivery from customers.
Yeah, we
And
talked
you
about
fine
that.
the customer $500 or $1,000 for not delivering the content on time.
No, at that point, it's dummy lips and text, and you don't care. It's their problem at that point. With me, I don't even bother with that. It's not worth it. Just, they get what they get at that point. You've done your work. Yes, guy.
Mike, understand one thing, this is under GPL, and it's kind of vague, it's depending on who decides what. If you give them the source code for whatever reason, even if they don't pay you, they still have the right to that source code, even though it's a violation of the contract.
No, they don't. They can come to you and
Scott?
ask you for the source code at any time, and you have to give it to them if it's on their website, but you can charge them for giving it to them.
No, what I'm saying is, if
comes right back to your contract.
I got one client in the process wanted to have access to the code to look at to vet it, and I refused because I said, once I give you the code, you have the rights, the same rights I have from the GPL. And it's been argued back and forth, because I've asked some people who study.
I'll talk to you about that on the side, because that could be a whole big thing. Limit the number of revisions on your contract and your proposal, okay? You gotta revise a million times. That means you got an undecided client and they need to get their act together and come back to you, okay? Limit the number of revisions on your contract. Who the hell has that kind of time? If they're not willing to sign a clear outline contract, and if they want you to sign their contract, that's fine, but make them sign yours too. I'm not signing yours until you sign mine, okay? And then we'll negotiate both of them, you know, but I'm not signing yours until you sign mine. It's that simple, okay? And make sure that they don't contradict each other. That's the biggest thing if you end up signing. There's nothing wrong with signing two contracts, okay, as long as they're not contradictory. Maintenance and technical support. Like I said, that should be a separate contract, okay, than web development, okay? It's a completely different service. Define copyright ownership. Scott? Define copyright ownership in your contract. Who owns the copyright to the stuff you're giving them?
We do.
No, you don't. You do not own the copyright to Joomla.
No, I'm a designer.
You do not own the
Designer.
copyright to the GPL code snippets that you've used. You do not own the copyright to the jQuery snippets that you're using in your website.
No.
Period. Unless you've written it 100% from scratch and no one else in the world has it, which is an extremely minimal chance that that's going to ever happen.
Don't I own the artwork?
Artwork is a different story. Content, textual content, could be a different story, okay? JavaScript, like I said, jQuery or something like that. JavaScript could be, CSS could be. CSS is a little gray. I mean, there's only so much you can do to make it really unique, unless you come up with a color that no one's ever heard of. Come on, let's be serious here. Let's be serious here. You do not own the copyright. In my contracts, it clearly states the copyright holder of anything shall retain their original copyright. I keep it generic, okay? Intellectual property is a different thing, okay? I do not transfer intellectual property until I'm paid in full, okay? That means their website does not get transferred fully into their hands as owning their website on their domain until I'm paid in full.
Which means it might be on their server and in their hands, but not the ownership rights, right?
Exactly. Okay. They don't own the work that I did until I'm paid.
Does that mean you can take it down if they don't?
Oh, yes.
Oh, you wait.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, I worked a lot of hours doing this stuff. And I've tweaked this over the past year. Avoid work for hire. Okay, someone says, you know, anything that you touch from the time I hire you until the time I fire you is mine. I don't think so. Unless you're doing work for the Joomla project and you sign their agreement. Try to avoid this situation, because once you sign away on that, you have just snip, drop, you got nothing there. Okay? You're done. You might as well just say you're a drone at that point. You got no control as a freelancer, or a contractor at that point. You're just an employee. That just means employee, okay? Yeah.
Where do I find information about clients who want the extensions?
What do you mean? That's-
Oh, I had a client who said I had to turn over all extensions. And I said, I don't own them.
That's
Like a
copyright
brokerage.
ownership remains in the,
So
is the copyright owner.
That clause will.
Yeah,
go
I'll show you,
back.
I'll let you guys read my contract if I get time to go through this, and I'm gonna have to speed it up. Don't back down on the following. These are the 3 most important things that you gotta be a jerk about if you have to be. IP transfers on full payment, we just discussed that. Termination and kill fees. You get halfway through that project and you go visit that client in their elaborate Microsoft offices like this, you landed the big one. And you come in to meet a certain person, and then you see a bigwig that you don't know walking through that door, and he says, sorry Mike, we had to let so-and-so go, and we've shut this project down. And you're sitting there thinking, damn, I only took 25% of the money down. And that's non-refundable, so I got 25%, but I'm 3/4 of the way done with this project, and I got a lot invested in it, and I paid my employees, and I paid for a hell of a lot of commercial software to do this job. I am screwed. How do you keep from being screwed? It's called a termination kill fee, okay? If they kill the project, they owe you for every single thing that you've done up to that point. Everything, including the travel time and the time you're sitting in that chair while they're telling you this. That's what you have to have a clause for, okay? Chances are you'll never be in that situation, but it does happen, and if you ever end up in that situation, this will protect you, okay? Liability, how much liability is on your head? Okay, what I mean by liability is, I guess, this is the hardest thing I have to, every time I do this presentation, explain. Liability is, I guess, how much is the client liable for, and how much are you liable for? Are they liable for all content creation? Are you liable for all content creation? You obviously want to minimize your liability, which is why I said I push all content stuff over to them, unless I'm being paid to do that, like you are with your other services. You always want to minimize your liability on anything, okay? Which also goes into what I said earlier in your proposal proposal things like things you can charge extra for, extension styling. You're not liable to do extension styling unless they know that they're paying you to style that extension. So you want to minimize that, okay? Never back down on this stuff, okay? Because the more they want you to include, the more liability you have, okay? Make sure you're getting paid well for what you're doing, okay? Because sometimes things just don't work out. Yeah.
So you're talking more whose responsibility?
Whose responsibility?
Not if they plagiarize, you're liable.
Exactly. Yeah, that could be another thing too. Exactly. I'm sad to say I hired a marketing director within the past 2 months, and I had him create 5 blog articles for me. And I got them submitted, and I thought, I'm reading through this stuff, and I'm like, just doesn't seem like his words. As much as I've talked to him over the past couple months, and dealing with him and having him do stuff. I'm like, man, this just doesn't sound like what he would say or write. So I opened up copyscape.com, and boom, all 5 documents went in there. And 4 of those documents, 75% of them were plagiarized. And 1 of those documents was directly copied from some friends of mine.
Wow.
Yeah, and you think 1 in the morning that evening, they didn't get an email telling them that they're fired. It happens, okay? It happened with in your own company. So that's a very good point. You need to make sure that you're not liable for stuff like that, because you were telling me last night an attorney contacted you on a website you built,
Third-party claim.
third-party claim, and the company that hired him to build the website said, no, this JavaScript was done by our web designer, and it's his problem. He didn't do it. It was something.
It was bogus.
It was bogus. It was not like non-existent claim type stuff. But a company will always pass the buck to someone else to take the focus off themselves.
It was bogus, but it was
Okay.
150 pages.
But it put him through hell trying, and I'm sure it scared you, saying, oh, holy shit, what am I liable for here? So try and limit your liability.
I would tag on to that, always document where your client, whether you or your client provided images, because Getty sends out these cease and desist letters all the time. The client tries to pin it on your head. You used images on my website that now I'm getting sued $1,000 each for. You have to go through everything and say, no, you provided me these images, and that's your
Exactly.
liability.
Let's roll along. List potential problems, as I said earlier, and include a clause for those potential problems. If you already know there's red flags, and your client already knows there's red flags and brought them to your attention, list them. Just say, these are upfront potential problems. Whether you list them in your contract or your proposal. In my case, my proposal becomes a part of the contract. Remember I said the appendix is the first page of my contract? It says proposal number, it says appendix, proposal number, and then it has the number. Instantly ties that entire contract to that proposal, and every proposal number has a unique number, dash, and a version number. If I've revised it 3 times, it'll be -3. It's that simple, and I refer to that version and that proposal number every single time in every contract, no matter what, okay? You have to. It becomes a part of it, and it rolls it all into one. Clearly define what constitutes a completed project. How many of you got that endless? You get those endless, oh, by the way. Okay? I like those oh, by the ways. Okay? Or, you know, I was thinking. You always just, you know, I was thinking, Mike, like, yeah, hung up, we got disconnected. You know?
Well, we showed it to,
Okay.
we showed it to the president.
Yeah, exactly.
I have an idea.
All right, I built another attorney site. I made him sign. He was happy with the site. I've got a form, a very, very simple form. It's 1 sentence. You, the website project for X and such proposal number is completed. Sign off, date it, done. The attorney had no problem signing off. Every time he came back to me for every little change, you know, here's your bill. Here's your bill. You know, certain things I'll warranty my workmanship, you know, for X amount of days, you know, weeks, months, whatever it is, depending on the project and everything. But, you know, if it has nothing to do with that type of stuff, you know, spelling errors on stuff that they did and they forgot how to change it, I've already trained them and now I got to retrain them because they didn't write things down or pay attention. That's not my problem. I did my job. Now I got to redo my job. Okay, and that's billable time.
What about third-party extensions that break? Like I had.
That's not your problem. You didn't develop the software. It's not your problem. So you have to clearly state that. Okay, clearly state that.
I mean, like 3 months down the road.
Bugs in Joomla and bugs in an extension are not your fault. Okay, that's like an IT person going to a company and installing Windows on every computer in their office, and Windows has a bug. Is that his fault? No.
Right.
Companies generally understand that type of situation, especially if you put it in that type of.
Does final payment constitute end of a project? If you got paid?
Yes. If,
They came back and said-
and if I have people sign off, which most of the time I do have them sign off on that completed work, that's when the final bill gets triggered.
Right.
You know, and I just say, I want to make sure you're happy, you like everything. I said, call me anytime for some questions. I'm here for some consulting. If you just forget where to go in the back end to do this and this and this, you know, add a menu item, stuff like that, just call me. I'm here. You know, and they know you're not going away, and that's the end of it, and they'll never see you again. You know, it's a relationship. You have to give them a little comfort and extend yourself a little bit. But
if you didn't get that sign off, but you got your final payment.
I would constitute that final.
Always have a
Yeah.
sign off, because
Yeah.
sometimes
But it's
less money.
good to have the sign off. It's always good to have the sign off.
Yeah.
Financial. How important is the money to you? Does anybody here care about money? Anybody? Does it really matter? Why are you even sitting here if you don't? Okay. Stupid question, but if the money's not important to you, don't worry about signing a contract. You know, if you don't. I mean, if you're like, I can eat hot dogs for the next 2 months. I don't care. You know.
Yeah, but you're still at risk of liability.
Yeah. I mean, you could be a bum on the corner. What are they going to get from me? You know what I mean? I mean, it's one of those things. You may end up a bum on the corner if you don't care about the money. You want to be a bum on the corner. Don't sign a contract. It's that simple. Okay. Not that there's anything wrong with bumps, but you know what I mean. Include payment schedules. That's in my appendix. You're asking what is in the appendix. Appendix A is my payment schedule. Okay? First bullet point. First payment is a non-refundable fee of is a 50% non-refundable payment. And I leave it at that, put no dollar amount. Because if they do revise it, you know, and something like that, you got to revise that too. Just keep it generic. But there was a couple keywords there that I said. What were they?
Non-refundable.
Non-refundable. How many of you do that? And how many of you clearly state that? Like I said, make them commit. They want you to commit to them, make them commit to you.
Is this contract all in response to the RFP? Well, this is after.
No, I never, ever, ever submit my contract with an RFP or with a proposal, ever.
So after they award it.
After they call you and say, let's jump.
And then they look at your contract and then they don't?
That's a negotiation.
Okay.
You've already won. You already know that they're going to sign a contract. What contract are they going to sign?
Right.
At that point, the contract doesn't mean anything. Okay. When you're dealing with the proposal, it doesn't matter. They're worried about dollars. They're not thinking about. They're not even probably thinking that you're going to have them sign a contract. They just want their damn website built. They don't care about all that stuff.
And so you never encountered where they said, "Hey, you sign our contract."
Oh yeah, I have had that, and that's when I said.
Okay, that's where you.
If I'm signing yours, you're signing mine,
Right.
and our attorneys review both of them.
Okay.
Because I'll tell you right now, mine is protecting my butt.
Right.
And holding you accountable, and the reverse. You're for your company, and that's it. It has nothing to do with developing this website.
Okay.
And that's where I have an issue with signing a company's contract.
And they've
Okay,
never
because
lost
they don't.
anything.
Never.
Okay.
Yeah.
In general, after you've been awarded from the RFP and it's go, how long is your turnaround time till that contract is signed and you begin work?
1 to 3 days.
Okay.
That's typical.
Okay.
3 days is probably somebody that's just got a lot going on, really. I get them within a day usually.
Okay.
I send them out usually within a day unless I'm traveling or something like to here, you know, but usually it's pretty quick.
Okay.
We talked about this, non-refundable. How many of you do 30-day net payment terms standard? Why?
Why?
I'm asking you the question. Why do you do that?
Because I always did that.
Because you always did that. Why?
Same reason.
Okay. Why?
I do 210 net 30 sometimes, but usually 100% upfront for most contracts.
Okay. That's pretty good. 100% non-refundable?
Yes, sir.
Here. It's all yours. You can handle this. Anybody else do anything different than net 30?
I do completion date, pay within 7 days.
Okay. For the full amount?
No, I do half up front and then the second half.
And then the second half,
seven
so you're
days
net
after.
7, say?
Yeah, net
Okay.
7, yeah.
Anybody else?
I'm on completion.
Huh?
I'm usually on completion of that milestone. So
But how many days do you
it's
get
on
paid?
that day. It's on that day. I've done that with huge clients.
So it's like you've got your shit. I've got to have mine now.
I'm gonna have mine.
Okay.
on the
One
same
day.
Okay.
On receipt.
One day, like
But I-
on delivery.
On delivery.
But I don't put the website up until I got the check in the bank deposited.
Okay. I do a net sub. Okay, and if you're doing 30 or anything else other than net 7,
It's too long.
is way too long.
Too long to think about it.
For you to say that's because
Anything could
it's
happen.
standard. Well, who the hell wrote that standard? I've never seen it.
They can go
There
out
is
of
no standard
They
for
can go out of
payments.
business
There's no such
in
thing
30 days.
Well, they,
in this
nobody
world.
have a website make 30, all the money that they owe you within the
you
30
know,
days after.
I've gotten
Here's my philosophy, and I do discuss this with my clients. If I'm going to give you a proposal and you're going to call me and tell me that you're going to move forward, and you cannot afford to pay that entire amount up front, even though I'm only going to charge you 50 up front, if you cannot afford that entire amount right now, then you are not to sign a contract with me. It's that simple.
you know,
You don't go to the grocery store and pick up some food and put it in your cart and get up to the register and say, I can't afford all this. I wonder if they'll let me make a payment. You don't do that. I mean, you can't do it that way.
you know, and
Net 7, there's no reason, and the only reason not to interrupt you, but the only reason I do a net 7, a lot of my clients pay by check. So there's no reason within a couple of days that they cannot cut a check and get it processed even through the biggest companies. Only takes a few days. I used to work for Allstate. Allstate Insurance Company only cuts checks on Wednesdays out of their Dallas office. Period. They just have so many. That's the only day that everything gets literally spit out of the machine for an entire week's worth of checks. And it's because they have such an ungodly amount of checks that they have to have on hand. And any other date stamp than that, they know it's fraud. Okay, so it's a security thing with them. So in that case, you get some fortune companies that are like that. They may only process things, but it's usually within a week of you giving it to them. So I give them a grace period and then mailing time. Okay? I use an online billing service, freshbooks.com. These days, with PayPal and all these other resources, there's no way that anybody has a reason not to pay you within 7 days, no matter what their process is. Okay? That's my personal opinion. That's what I suggest to everybody.
yeah, I mean, you can, even the biggest companies, and even the bigger companies is where I'm more vigilant. That's Sumitomo, one of the biggest companies in the world. You know, when you're writing out your payment schedule, they make sure you know what days they cut checks.
Yeah.
Ask your account person, and then put the deliverable on the day that they can meet that.
Right.
And so
If there's something like that, your clients are going to tell you.
Even
You know,
the government,
stuff like that.
You know, I had the New York Inspector Generals for this MTA, and you would think, you know, they have 90-day schedules, but if you go in your contracts and you talk to their lawyers, when you do it, and they have a lot of lawyers, and you put it on a schedule, they'll have the check on those days, just the same. You know, and you won't lose the customer at the biggest funded venture company, and they were in Hawaii. I never met them. Did $1 million of business with me in 9 months. And if they didn't, you know, I'd hand over my deliverables, that check would be wired and in my account on that day, on that schedule. So the biggest
There's
companies,
no reason.
your most valuable clients, you know.
There's never an excuse that anybody can ever give you why you cannot get paid for the work you've already completed and handed over. It's that simple. Whose contract did you sign, the client or yours? We already discussed that. Some of the stuff I guess I included and jumped around on. Make sure you include your attorney's fees if you get drug into court and they drop it, that you can get reimbursed for that. exclude outside vendors that compete with you. How many of you have that in your contract? I do. Nobody can bring in any competitor, which means any web designer, any web developer, graphic designer, any service that I offer, they cannot hire another person to do any of those services unless I approve it.
For what? Just for that job?
For that job, while I'm under contract with them, and that includes maintenance. Because do you want them to have two different companies working on something, and then have that other company get something jacked up, and then they blame you for it, and the other company's denying it? I sure the hell don't. So that's a clause I have in my contracts. Include travel, training, and consulting fees. Itemize those, bullet point them, and how many hours you're including for training. If you're going to include 2 hours or 4 hours or 8 hours worth of training, depending on how big that site is, you line item it. Okay? If you're saying web development, $8,000, and that's the only line item you got, no matter what that proposal says, it's training 4 hours at this rate equals this. Then you put like your web development cost this. They need to know that there's a limit of 4 hours of training. Otherwise, you can spend 8 hours on the phone and go into their office and all that stuff, because anything above 4 hours, billable time. Okay, like I said, your proposal is going to have the numbers. Your proposal just became a part of your contract because your contract references the proposal. Okay, so you have to make sure you're covering yourself in your proposal as well. Scope creep. I take it by the giggles. Nobody knows what this means. We all know what it means, and it happens to all of us. When do you amend a contract? Minor changes in design and functionality, adding new minor services, maintenance, backup services. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. If it's just one little change, I don't. If they come back with one more little change, I do. Because now it's 2 little changes, and I already know that they have momentum. Okay? And there's about to be a snowball getting bigger. All right? When to create a new contract? When there's major changes. Okay? Any big changes, just redo it. Okay? Make them re-sign a new one, redate it, re-reference, a new appendix, something like that. Yeah.
Do you replace the previous contract? Or
No, it's an add-on. If you're doing a simple amended contract, that can just be an amendment page, and you have them initial that page. If you're doing major functionality, what I do is, if the entire project decides to go in a different direction, but they're still going to use you as the vendor and say, you know what, we thought this would work for our company, and we found out through processes and stuff, it's not, we need to do a complete shift, right angle shift. Rewrite what you now have to do, end of the work that you've done to date, and that contract. Get paid. You have just completed where they've told you to kill termination fee.
I understand.
They've terminated that project in the direction it was going. Now you can take that same proposal and just modify it, change the proposal number, okay, and then it's going to be version 1 of that proposal number. It's a new proposal, another new contract, make them sign that, move on, and then you continue down the new path, okay? It's as simple as that, but you have to end that first one and get paid. Now it's new, we're going a new direction, new project type thing, okay? That's when you would do that.
Can I just ask though, on the problems that occur on this first point, when you amend a contract here, it's like, let's say, what I get from you is a very functional level. If I've delivered this functionality, you pay me, okay? If it does this, that's it, okay? To the letter of the T of the contract. Where I get into a problem is people say, yeah, but I'd like to have the navigation menu buttons over here and working this way. Functionally, you've delivered, but it doesn't look right, or it doesn't navigate the way I'd like to see it. Change that. That's where take more time, or that's where
That's where you say, should I have known better and built it that way? And just do it? Or is it something they clearly knew about, now they just changed their mind, do they get charged for
No,
it?
you deliver something.
You're dealing with
It's
some
just
things
a
like
matter
that.
of opinion. It's an
Yeah.
aesthetic sometimes.
It's gonna depend on the job. If you're happy with what you got paid and you don't mind spending a couple hours taking care of it, if it's something simple, usually I just take care of it. I don't care. You know, it depends on what it is. It really does. You know, and if you feel that your client's just trying to maybe take advantage and have you change some things. So, I mean, that some experience goes along with this, okay? So, I can't give you all the answers, and I wish I could, but otherwise, I wouldn't even have to be here. I'd be rich. Payment schedules and terms are renegotiated. Sign a new contract, brand new, because your old one doesn't matter anymore. And why bother? Adding new major services like SEO, SEM services, I usually just do a separate contract for those. Okay, it's no more. We're not building a website now. We're doing SEO services and marketing services, so I do that contract separate. Analyze why the scope changed. There's a reason that there's a thing called scope creep. It's because you did not communicate with your client well enough, or he did not communicate with you well enough. You need to analyze why it happened so that you can prevent it in the future. Okay. What do you do when things go wrong? Client or third-party modifications. Okay. This goes back to why I have a clause in there that no other third-party people can go into their website. Unless it's a bug in an extension and that extension developer has to fix the bugs, things like that is okay. You know, who cares? But if anybody's actually developing on that site, you know, you don't even want to go there, so you need the clause. If possible, talk to your client on the phone. Most misunderstandings can be easily resolved over the phone. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone. A lot of people want to just respond to email. It's very cold. People get misunderstood on email. You know how it is. Pick up the phone and just talk to people. You know, 90% of the time you can lose a customer by not picking up the phone. And they love to know that you're going to resolve things for them. You know, and you can hear sincerity in a voice. You can fire your clients. Anybody in here ever fired a client? Okay. We're trying to minimize that by qualifying the RFPs. Okay. Like we talked about in the beginning. But you sometimes have to fire people. I mean, it just happens. So they're not a good fit, or they whack out, or whatever. You know, things happen to people. Do it with respect. If you have to separate ways, do it with respect. Be kind. You know, don't burn bridges no matter what, and how rude they may be to you. Be professional. You know, don't be mean or anything like that. So, have an exit clause. Make sure that if you have to get to that point, you're getting paid for what you did. Okay, that's an exit clause. That's the same as if a termination kill fee would basically roll into that, very similar to it. Okay. Have you covered your costs? That's what the exit clause is. Okay, make sure you've covered your costs. At the bottom, you'll see the URL of this presentation on SlideShare. If you go to joomlachicago.com, you can go see the presentation of this that I gave, the same presentation at Joomla Day Chicago, and you can watch the video all you want, back and forth. Skip ahead. There's my contact information, my 2 websites, either one of those. Anytime anybody wants to get a hold of me, you can do so. How much time do I have, Fred?
Yeah, where were you 10 years ago?
Marion Cananza, how much time did you have?
He was in college then.
And you quit.
10 minutes, or is it 10 minutes?
10 minutes?
No, you have a lot of time, actually.
Do I? Awesome.
Yeah, I believe you have a lot of time.
How many of these mistakes have you made?
I think I made 3 mistakes in something.
How many
Turn off that camera before I answer that question.
Really?
I've probably made most all of them.
This is a question of how many of us have made every mistake that you've talked about.
learned the hard way.
Okay?
Yeah, I mean, how many? I mean,
Almost all of everybody.
the reason I give this presentation, because I feel it was extremely valuable and important to me. And I thought, God, I go to these Joomla days, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people that do what I do, but maybe not at the volume I do. But if I needed this, they probably need it too. So that's why I came up with this presentation. I've been doing it all year long, and I thought it's very, very valuable information. You know, it's, you know, I mean, you can have all the how-to Joomla tutorials on how to use this extension, how to use that extension. But if you're not adding value to your daily business, then what good is that? You know, anyone can learn how to use an extension. How do you make your business better and how to protect yourself, I thought was pretty important. And that's why I proposed to do this topic here and at the other Joomla days. And I hope you like it. But I'm going to try and pull up some contracts here.
Like this,
Where do you get
this 3-part magazine article you mentioned,
Yeah.
is that available?
magazine.joomla.org, and it's called RFPs, Proposals and Contracts, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and each part is a different month. And I did it over the summer. I forgot exactly which months. But it was
Say that again, magazine?
magazine.joomla.org.
That's it, and then just search for
And then just search, just in the search, just type in Mike Carson. Or just Carson, it'll find it.
And is on slideshow, do you also consider, or do you also post that, your contracts? Samples? No?
No.
Nothing.
I will privately give that to you, because I've spent a lot of money and time developing these.
So just email you?
So I don't share those to the world, but I will share them with you privately.
So, but if you get that proposal kit, a lot of contracts are in there.
There's a lot of stuff in there. Let me find a more recent one here. I'll show you a real world proposal, the one that I changed.
What is your minimum? I mean, what do you cut off at? Like, you don't do anything below 5 or 10,000, 20,000?
I don't think he's allowed to talk about
If you do little tiny work, you got to
I don't.
So, I mean, covering attorney fees and all
See,
the
with
overhead?
Joomla Showroom, it's a little different for me. I do so many customizations to my extensions. I do stuff for $200. I do stuff for 80 sometimes. I mean, I do web design type work. I try to stay away from the little ones because I have so much. I'm in a unique position to where I have the blessed business I have. I can, most of the time, I mean, not all the time, I do have my slow months, but most of the time I can kind of pick and choose, you know, what I want to do, and I evaluate, you know, and a lot of stuff is like, it's total throwaway stuff. You know, and I may give it to people that do side work, you know, type stuff, and say, you know what, this guy he can't afford nothing but $750 type stuff, you know, and I'll throw it to them. You know, it's a nice little bonus to them type stuff. But I mean, if the thing that I really look for is, it doesn't matter about the dollar amount. Are the people realistic? Do they have a realistic expectation of what they're getting for the money they can afford, is number one. And are they serious? You know, if I tell them I need something from them, are they going to get it to me? I mean, that's bottom line. And how were they referred to me? Were they referred from an existing customer or a friend? You know, something like that. You know, sometimes you don't want to turn down unless it's just a waste of your time. Right. You kind of got to evaluate it. If it's a total waste of your time, just throw it back. It doesn't matter if it's $5,000 or $10,000. It could still be a waste of your time. I mean, if it's a $10,000 job, there's no way to say there's a minimum. If it's a $10,000 job and they're expecting a $30,000 site, it ain't gonna happen. You know, it's garbage. So you just have to have the experience to read the people and learn and evaluate them and, you know, make sure you qualify them properly. Okay, there it is. This is one of my proposals. The only thing I've changed is the name. It's actually a friend of mine's website that I had built years ago, but it's not the actual contract, but at least I wanted a real name or something because I couldn't really think nothing fake, but okay. He wants a new 2.5 website. So the title page is this. It's simple. It's just got my contact information. What are we doing? He wants a new 2.5 website. It's one sentence. That's it. Okay? Right there, proposal 123-1, and it's dated. Okay? Simple as that. You know, actually I forgot to change the bottom date because I changed the top one earlier to 14th and this is the 7th, but everything's dated. All right? Version number, I'll show you a contract that references this in the same way. Table of contents, really simple stuff. Then I have a cost summary. You were asking about how do you bullet point your software licenses. In this, it's in my miscellaneous. I just threw it down here. Okay? He asked, why do I need 3 payment gateways? You have 3 different extensions that use 3 different unique payment gateways. You know, so they're all authorized.net, but they're unique to that extension. So you need 3 of them. You know, so he needs an SSL certificate, so that's in there. You know, you've got to itemize some things like this. You know, the bulk. You see, I got 4 hours of training in there, like I explained before. Here's a real world example of how I broke some things out. I broke out the template design separate from the web development and setup. You know, all the 50 hours includes installation setup of Joomla itself and all the extensions. Okay. Then once I get the template developed separately, install that, now I got to go in and configure all the modules and move everything around and kind of just make it work and test it, okay? So it's good to kind of include hours, especially not just dollar amounts, okay? Because they want to know, well, what's happening? How much time do you anticipate this taking, okay? And then down underneath, you'll see I got a little disclaimer, okay? And what's the last sentence say? All hours are based on an hourly rate of X per hour, whatever your rate is, okay? Include that so they know what those numbers above mean, okay? You'll see optional items to consider. Maybe I throw some numbers in there just so they got an idea, okay? You start to get them thinking about the future, okay? Wow, I wonder why he put maintenance down there. Do I need maintenance? Maybe that's important. You know, they'll come back to you and ask you. Okay, I have lots of clients that do that. So you're setting yourself up for an upsell, okay?
Now,
and a longer term plan.
Now, you just blew past that thing on the website maintenance and you gave $150 per month, but is that unlimited support?
Well, that's the thing. You want them to ask.
Okay.
Okay, you just throw something out there. You don't define it, you don't write paragraphs about it, it's not part of the proposal. You're just throwing it out there on the page that has numbers. Okay? It's all I'm doing is I want them to question, hey, I see you offer maintenance, what's $150? What does that mean? You want them to ask you so that you have an opportunity to explain to them what they need and what you can sell to them for a certain amount. It could be more, it could be less. But you at least gave them a general dollar amount to say, here's a number. You know, you could put $50 in there, but maybe you should really charge $400 a month. You know, so it's like, I just throw in like a middle range number and say, here we go, roughly on this type of a job, you've just written the proposal for it, you know what kind of website it is, I would probably charge $150 for this type of website, type thing, okay? So, then I have my scope. This is what they want to know. You'll see each paragraph is basically a bullet point, okay? Custom design, content presentation. Notice I didn't say content development, it's content presentation, okay? With like a CCK. I don't mention what CCK I'm going to use, okay? I just know that they need it. He threw out some CCKs that maybe he knew because he's got an existing 1.5 or 1.0 website, for instance, and he knows that there's CCKs that exist for 2.5, but he's never used one. He doesn't know what he needs. I know what he needs. I'm not going to list it here. I'm just going to, because what if I change my mind and say this one's not going to meet his needs, not going to change and use another one, you know, because of certain things. Now I've got that freedom to do it and I'm not locked into one. And he's not got any expectations on one. Okay? Learning management system, same thing. What LMS are we going to use? It doesn't matter to him. He just needs to make sure it fits his needs. Okay? Specific extensions, I try not to ever mention because there's so many out there and so many alternatives to each one. You may have to change your mind as you're developing a site just so that you can know. Same with banner advertisements and photo galleries. How many of those things are out there? You know, tons. So leave it kind of generic. But that's pretty much the end of my scope, other than a proposed navigation structure with a clause that said could change slightly. You know, and he's got like this real weird, ugly navigation that's like millions of buttons up at the top of his page stacked like a pyramid. And I'm like, ew. I'm like, we can consolidate some of this for you, you know, and have a hell of a lot nicer flow and make it more usable, you know, and everything. So he's like, well, I don't understand what you're meaning. I laid it out like this, he understood right away. He knew, and I said, everything's kind of a drop down under resources. You know, it'll just be a drop down button or menu item. He's like, oh, now I get it. You know, so if you can include something like that, how long does it take you to put stuff?
Now, is this what you're considering SWOT?
Huh?
Is this what you're considering your SWOT?
This is my scope. I didn't do a SWOT on this.
Menu items are really important to include in a Joomla proposal or contract because in Joomla, menu items are, you know, like component one menu item, you know, one component menu item.
Yeah.
The menu item is what you're creating. So.
And basically he knows he's got to provide me content for a terms of service page at the bottom of this list now.
I mean,
and a
like
privacy policy.
Right there, you say resources, free videos, okay? That can mean a lot of things, like they want you to embed the code for putting videos in.
Well, he's already got videos on his old site.
Right.
We just have to re-embed them on a new page, on a content page.
But
on
you're
the
not
new
getting
site.
into specifics on that here?
No, it's what he has currently will be what he has on the new site. It's a migration. So this was a little bit easier example. It's not it's a site rebuild.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not a migration, it's a site rebuild, but he already has existing content, so we don't have to worry about new content, okay? Which is other than terms of service, privacy policy. He didn't have any of that before, but now that he's selling things on the new site, he has to have that legally. So he's got to have a refund policy. He knows that he has to provide that stuff. You know, I told him over the phone, I'm setting up dummy links from text. These will be live links. You're not publishing your website until you have this ready. You know, so the longer it takes you to publish your website, and that's under your control, not mine. So he understands that right up front, that I'm delivering your website unpublished to the world, and now I just handed you the keys. It's up to you to start that car, not me. Okay? So that's pretty much the way I'm handling like this specific type of client. Okay.
On content transfer, if they say, we want you to take our existing site, you can redo it, we've got all this content. You go, okay, fine. Do you do that by the hour then?
Well, yeah, that's the website. Like, I used 50 hours as an example in this.
Right.
That it takes 50 hours to do
But
this.
if you-
That's, I analyzed this site and said, yes, it would take roughly 50 hours for me to do all this work. You know, and I kind of just wrote it down on a piece of paper. This extension, I'm probably going to take 2 hours setting it up. This extension. I just wrote it all up, And then I'm like, add it all up. And then I put it on a line item because I don't need to bullet point all that crap for him because he doesn't care. He doesn't understand it anyway. You know, they just want to know roughly how many hours is this going to take and how much do I have to pay.
And here's where I got burned. You know, I said I'll do content transfer, and it had some links, and it had some pages. And then under one of the pages, there were sub-pages that turned out to be like 100 additional pages.
Well, that goes along with your analysis. You need to analyze what they want you to do.
I took it as that was my mistake. That was my problem.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
So the next page is my company history. Just tells them a little bit about why they should choose me type stuff and some services we offer, how long we've been in business, stuff, just generic stuff. That's the end of my proposal on this. Simple, right? To the point. Something like this will sell a contract every single time if you outline it simple enough and you give them just enough that they need to know. Don't overdo it because you'll confuse them. If you got your client calling you and asking you a million questions, you have not done your job properly. Or that person is way overeducated than you estimated and knows a hell of a lot more about Joomla than you ever thought of. And they've got way too much time on their hands browsing the extensions directory. Okay? And you can usually tell that if you're dealing with a client that comes to you with an existing site and they got every one of Hung's 85 extensions installed, you know, and 20 of his templates, and you automatically know that they don't know what they're doing and they just like to play and use their live site as a playground, okay? And they're just asking for trouble. So I mean, that's stuff you need to analyze up front too, okay? Now I'll show you real quick a contract. I'll show you this one.
Do you start with boilerplate for your contracts, or do you write each one individually?
I start with a template because I've built a master template.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah, the master template that you just saw, that's one. I've got two. I've got one for web design and software development. If I'm doing custom software development, I just have one, and then I just tweak it to say web design or software development, because both of them are damn near the same. You're developing something. You just have to define what it is you're developing and tweak it from there. Very, very minimal changes to do that. But then I have a separate master one for website maintenance, ongoing maintenance, okay? Because it does have to have some different wording, but the majority of it is the same between both of them. I got 5 minutes and that's all this will take. What's at the top of this contract? This is my appendix page and this is my first page. Proposal number. Number 1 includes the version, okay? Second is the payment milestones, period, okay? I try to keep everything simple and stupid. I love the KISS theory. Keep it simple and stupid, okay? Customer is to provide the developer with all content within 10 days of initiation of this contract. Don't you love that statement? Okay? It's in my appendix page. It's not buried in my contract where they can't find it. It's right up front, in front of their face. There's no excuse for them not to see it. Got me? A lot of people bury it in their contract. I don't want to do that, ever. Failure to provide the following content within the outlined time period will delay the project and developer will use dummy sample content in place of real content. So now I've given them a deadline and a consequence. Fair enough. Okay? You win. There's no way you can lose having a statement like that. There's no way that they can say, you didn't deliver. No, I delivered, you didn't deliver.
You don't say it's going to be more funds.
Right, okay. So Then scope is super simple. I've already done the scope. Itemized in proposal 123-1. Simple as that. Refer to this. Okay? Now, it starts a contract. Okay? Which is already included in, the appendix and everything is already included, and your proposal is already made a part of this contract based on the first page. Okay? Notice at the bottom of every page, it has developer's initials and customer initials. Signing the last page of any contract don't mean crap. Get an initial on every single page from both parties, showing that they read every single page. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. At that point, the only thing that matters is the last page of that contract, no matter what text is on it. They can say, I didn't read all the other pages, I only signed the last one. You think that attorneys haven't tried that before in court? They do it all the time, okay? My attorney suggested that to me. Ownership rights. Customer shall retain all intellectual property rights in any text, images, and other content it owns, okay? Developers shall hold all right, title, and interest to all the source programming and original artwork created for the project, specifically without limitations, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, this contract is amazing, and I'd be happy to share it with you, because I think it would protect all of you, and I want everybody to be protected. I hate to see people that I know go through hell because they're not protected. And you can take it and tweak it. If you don't like something, here's how far I went, boys and girls. If I have a client that does not pay me within 60 days after they should, I have a clause that I now own their internet business, including their domain, and it'll hold up in court. So if you don't want to pay me, I own your ass. I mean, it's that simple, and it's almost like I have to have that thread in there for a reason, to get paid, and refer to it sometimes when people say, I'm not paying you. I've never had to use it, but I want that leverage, okay? It's all about leverage. You have to have some kind of leg to stand on. I have a clause in here that I can remove their website from their server if they don't pay me after X days, and I hold it on my local host. Then after so many days, it's mine. All content, all copyright ownership is transferred to me. I went that far. When I told you earlier, this is the negative part of our show, I mean it. And I mean business when I'm dealing with my clients, okay? You should mean business when you're dealing with your clients. You may think I'm ruthless. Yeah, I am ruthless because I care about putting food on my family's table. I don't want somebody screwing me. I'm not out to screw other people, and I hope to never ever have to use that. But if I ever had to use it, I have it in my back pocket and I can, okay? It's like the silver bullet. I know werewolves don't exist, and I don't think I'd ever see one. But it's like carrying a gun in your pocket with a silver bullet just in case. It's an insurance policy is what it is. So we're done. Yeah, and I'll talk to anybody after this.
How can we get copies of those contract templates and things that?
I'll give you my card.
Great job, Mike.
Ladies
Or
and
you can
gentlemen,
email me from any. That's probably the easiest and best way.
Yeah.
I'll be traveling over the next couple of days. So if you want it, Joomla, you can.
What's your email?
You can send it to info@joomlashowroom.com.
ladies and gentlemen, do your surveys, please. Stop and pick one up on the way out, leave it at the front desk. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to Mike, who always does a brilliant job. You're
Right here.